Oh snap, dog! It's October. You know what that means? Oh, I'm getting spooked over here. Oh, look at all these spooktacular skeletons. Oh, look at this. Oh, this is great. This intro is horrible. What is going on, everybody? My name is Matt, aka Chunky Monkey Games, and welcome to a review thing. I don't know, I'm trying something new here, right? Cut me some slack or something, I don't know. So it's October, that means Walking Dead is coming up, and in 1 week exactly, and probably a couple days by the time this video is up. But Fear the Walking Dead, that show's pretty good, right? Right, guys? Yeah. Oh, you guys don't like that show? Oh no. What am I gonna do? A lot of people seem to not like Fear the Walking Dead, and I can understand why in some instances, but other instances there's just no basis for hating it at all, while others there are valid criticisms. So today I'm gonna be taking a look at Fear the Walking Dead Season 3, and I'm gonna be reviewing it, legitimately, not like the JonTron ripoffs that I normally do, you know what I'm saying? I haven't done this before, so what I think I'm gonna do is, the first few minutes of this video are gonna be like spoiler free, and then the rest of them are gonna have spoilers, so I'll let you know when the spoilers are happening, and when they end. So I'll give you the timestamps or whatever to skip all the spoilery stuff if you haven't seen the season yet. It's going to be all of Season 3, not the first half, not the second half, all of Season 3. Probably some references to the first 2 seasons in there as well, so maybe watch those. So right off the bat, if you like the first 2 seasons of Fear the Walking Dead, then you'll definitely enjoy this season. It was much better than the previous 2, and it's pretty good. It's probably on par with some of the not as good seasons of the regular Walking Dead. Some of the more mid-tier seasons of the regular Walking Dead, like Season 3, 4, maybe 7 to an extent, depends on how you look at it. It's all subjective, I guess. But some of the more mid-tier seasons, Fear the Walking Dead Season 3 is probably on par with those as far as like quality goes. Like the story made sense to an extent, and it wasn't overly bad. Like there weren't that many horrible decisions being made. But it all still made sense. Everything added up. There are a lot of great character moments, a lot of great deaths, and it's a lot of cool stuff. You know what I'm saying? Despite all of this, however, this Fear the Walking Dead Season 3 rips off a lot of things from previous seasons of The Walking Dead, and it even rips itself off at some points. And it's kind of lazy writing, to be brutally honest. Now, if there's one thing Fear the Walking Dead severely has an issue with, it's pacing. The pacing of the show is just not very good. Like you'll have like entire focus episodes for certain characters, and then you'll have the next episode will be all over the place. I know the regular Walking Dead does this as well, but it's not as prevalent, and it always normally ties together in the end. But this, it's kind of all over the place. Like you'll have characters go to one place and then they come back, and it's kind of confusing for people who aren't following it. It's kind of weird. I'm not gonna be brutally honest. Like it wasn't the best pacing they could have had. They could have ordered some scenes differently. They could have had some episodes in different locations. That made sense. Like they could have had the episodes in a different order. That would probably made this a little bit better. But otherwise, it's actually pretty decent. Honestly, as far as the pacing and writing goes, Fear the Walking Dead is one of those shows where it's probably better to binge it as opposed to watching it weekly like I did. Because there's just so much like that you could easily miss, like in between a week, or you could easily forget about. Like there's this one death that I'm not gonna mention. I'm not gonna mention who it is. Maybe I'll mention it in the spoilery section. But right now I'm not gonna mention it. But there's one death where this character gets bit, but it's not very obvious that they got bit, and then the next episode it's revealed that they were bit, but it doesn't reveal how they were bit unless you watched like the last week's episode, which it's kind of like you would have to have watched it just like a few, like you have to just watched it to really fathom that. I'm one of those people who like will nitpick stuff like that, so I got it. I was like, okay, that makes sense. But some people might not have gotten it, so it's probably better to binge it if you're one of those people who's not very observant or whatever. But you know, watching it weekly, it kind of diminished the experience in a way, because there was a lot of minuscule things that you would have completely missed had you not there were a lot of things that you could have easily missed, and easily could have forgotten about like in a week's time between the next episode. So definitely, if you're gonna watch this season, definitely binge it, because it'll probably be a lot better if you binge watch it. Okay, so right here I'm going to start the spoilery section, so if you want to avoid spoilers, skip to wherever this is in the video. There's probably a timestamp somewhere on here. I don't know where. Click it somewhere. I don't know. Lighting's being weird. I'm going to go fix that. Fear the Walking Dead Season 3, as far as like characters and character arcs and story and like, you know, setting goes and all this stuff, it really bugged me in some instances, and I really liked it in some other instances. Allow me to explain. So they opened up the season really strong with a really I wouldn't say probably wasn't the best episode, but it was a passable episode. It was a decent episode. All the characters reunite. Well, most of the characters reunite. And then they go do some cool stuff, and then it basically sets up the rest of the season. But then they completely diminish that by killing off Travis. I told you this was spoilery. Now, Travis's death really bugged me because you'd think they'd take it somewhere like further than like, oh, Madison is sad that Travis died or something, and that's pretty much all they did with it. They're like, oh, let's have Travis get shot down out of a helicopter. Boom. Oh, Madison found out Travis is dead. Oh, she's sad now. Oh, and then nothing is ever done with that at all, ever. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna try to avenge Travis's death or like anything like that. But it doesn't really. They don't take it anyway. Like they make it almost to where his death had no meaning. I mean, I guess you could say that since it was the indigenous tribe or whatever that shot down in the helicopter that killed him. I guess you could say that since they were like the main antagonists for the first half of the season, that maybe like, oh, maybe she's trying to like not get along with them. She can't get along with them because she can't forgive them for what they did to Travis or whatever. But that's never addressed, like, ever. It's always like, oh, for the people. But it has nothing to do with Travis's death, and it kind of bugged me because after that premiere, Travis, I think, quickly became one of my favorite characters on that show, because he was like, the first couple seasons I didn't really like him because he was like, oh, I'm a wimpy guy, I'm trying to hold on to my humanity here, here's some literary elements because I'm an English teacher or something. But then in this episode he's going like, he's full on like, he's going full on Rick Grimes basically. He's like, oh, I'm gonna bash this thing's head in with a rock, and then I'm gonna fight off all these zombies in a pit. Oh, boom, took him down. Oh, look at me, I got blood all over me, I don't even care. That was basically how he was that whole episode. It made me like him as a character a lot more, because it's like, okay, now he's capable of doing this stuff. He knows what he has to do to survive and whatnot. He's definitely a more capable person than the previous seasons led him on to be. And then they like completely diminished that by killing him off immediately at the end of the same episode. So that really bugged me, but you know, then they took his death and then made it mean nothing. So this season takes place somewhere on the Mexico United States border. I don't know where. Probably, I would assume like somewhere like in California, like probably near Baja would be my guess, or Tijuana. But then there's like this ranch. That's where most of the episodes are, at this ranch. There's a side location, which is the dam, which becomes a lot more important later on in the season. Which, if you've watched it, I would assume you've seen it because it's at the spoilery section. But that becomes a lot more important later on in the season. Most of the episodes are at the ranch, though, and they take a lot of issues. They're like, oh, we're gonna do this internal conflict about like racism and discrimination or whatever, and like not being able to unify these people. But they like, for whatever reason, they just kind of threw that idea out the window. They did like 2 whole episodes on like, yeah, we can't coexist together. It's not gonna work. It's not gonna work, guys. And then it works, like for no reason. At the end of one episode, they're like, oh, you know what? We're about to kill all these people. No, let's help them dig this hole real quick. Didn't really make sense to me. Really bugged me how they were like, oh, let's set aside our differences just for 30 seconds to help you dig a hole, because that makes sense. No, that's not how actual people think. Actual people are like, alright, well, if I got up here, if I went all this way to kill all these people, then I'm gonna kill these people. I'm not gonna sit there and be like, oh, no, let's be friends now. No, that's not how the world works. I wish that's how the world works, but it ain't. What? So the ranch introduces us to a lot of new characters. We have Walker, Jeremiah, Jake and Troy. I think that's about it. But it introduces us to a lot of interesting characters that are, for the most part, like, barely characterized at all. Mostly Jeremiah and his son Jake, they were basically side characters that only existed to die. They were like, I'm pretty sure Jake's death in particular was like a last minute decision. They were like, yeah, let's kill him just cause, and which is kind of sucks because they could have easily used his character in a better way than like just death fodder, or like I'm gonna kill you, not really though, I'm gonna do it, and then he doesn't do it and then ends up getting himself killed. It's kind of like he was kind of a lame character to begin with because he just kind of existed and was like philosophical all the time, and he didn't really do anything to help out. He just kind of stood there and watched and didn't really take action at all. So I mean, I guess it's good that the character is no longer there, but they easily could have done a lot more with his character, especially considering like his relationship with Alicia and how, like, you know, Nick killed his father, but he didn't know that, so it's like, oh, that could have came up in season 4 or something, but they never like did anything with it. They could have been like, oh, let's do a thing, and then you know, it's whatever, you know. Jeremiah's death kind of bugged me a little bit less because it was like, oh, he was stubborn the whole time. He got killed because he was being stubborn, and like, he kind of caused his own downfall. It bugged me a little bit less, but it was kind of like, you know, why you gotta make Nick do it? Nick didn't really. It doesn't make, like, you know, it's having Nick be the person to pull the trigger does not make it like any different than if Madison had pulled the trigger, because like they as they explained, like, Madison is perfectly fine with killing people, but Nick didn't need to do it, and nor would he have had to necessarily in the future had everything gone down as like had everything gone down in an ideal way where, you know, not everybody dies, but, you know, what are you gonna do? Troy was a very interesting character, to say the least. They introduced him in the first episode of the season, and then he, like, you know, was kind of a side character for a little bit, and then he became like one of the major, like, I wouldn't say antagonists, but he's more like an anti-hero, if anything. He's on their side, but not really. And at the end of the season, the way they killed him off was just, I didn't like it at all, because it meant nothing. So, like, he was a really interesting character, because he was very obviously mentally not alright in the head. He was not there at all, and they could have easily played to that in some way, but for whatever reason, after the ranch, he's just completely sane. He's like, oh, I'm gonna try to kill all these people, and there you go. Oh, look, I killed them all. Okay, I'm gonna be like a normal person now, and you know, just chill with these people who I just tried to kill. You know, it doesn't. He's really, like, he's not necessarily a bad character per se, but like, they could have easily done more with him, and then they kind of killed him off in a really anticlimactic way that I really did not like. I mean, had he survived into season 4, he could have easily been become one of my favorite characters, because he was kind of growing on me the past few episodes, but you know, then they kind of killed him off for no reason, and it didn't really make real sense, to be brutally honest. Ophelia was another death that kind of bugged me, but I kind of could see it coming. So like, there's basically this whole thing in the first half of the season where Daniel's alive and Ophelia's alive. They're way separated, but they don't know that each other are alive. Like, Daniel doesn't know that Ophelia is alive, and Ophelia doesn't know that Daniel is alive. They both think each other are dead. So it's kind of this interesting thing where it's like, oh, they're crossing paths again. Maybe they're gonna finally reunite. It's gonna be a nice little scene. Right as it's about to happen, it's like, oh, she dies. That's great. Why? That doesn't really add anything to Daniel's character. It just makes him hate everybody just a little bit more. But then, you know, he's kind of a cool guy. He knows what's going on. He's like, all right, it's kind of not your fault, but it kind of was, but not really. So he knows he should be mad at somebody, but he doesn't know who to be mad at for Ophelia's death. Her death was one of those things that I was talking about before in the non-spoiler section, where it was like, you had to have really paid attention to the previous episode to understand why she was like bit in this episode, because the episode where you found out she was bit, she got bit in the previous episode, but it was like barely noticeable. Like there was a zombie like right on her, like right there, but you could like there was nothing to show that she was getting bit. It was just like, oh, there's a zombie right there. Oh, I'll shoot him in the face, and then the zombie dies, and it's like, oh, well, that was crazy. We should probably not be in this vent anymore. The whole episode passes, and then it's like, oh, she's bit. All right then. Why would you not make that obvious? It's something that it's a really little thing that really bugged me. But if you're gonna kill off a character like that, at least make it known how they died and how they got bit, and everything like that. This kind of goes back to the pacing of it, but the way they paced that was not very good at all. Or what they could have done? They could have done she gets bit in this one episode. The rest of the episode goes as normal, and at the end of the episode, she like looks at her shoulder or whatever. It's like, oh, I got bit. Oh no, I'm gonna tell nobody. They didn't reveal that until the next episode, which really bugged me because it's like, okay, they're all gonna be fine. They're all gonna go to the dam. It's gonna be hunky dory, and then it's not because she's bit, and it's like, okay, well, why did you not tell me this? Now, I did mention before that there were a few focus episodes in this season, and these focus episodes I actually really enjoyed. The two that I'm particularly thinking about are the Daniel focus episode that was entirely in Spanish, and the Alicia focused episode, which was in the pantry underground after the walkers attack. What's it called? The ranch. Got any ranch? I liked the Daniel episode a lot more because it was kind of, obviously it bridged the gap between when we last saw him and now, and it explains why he's still alive as opposed to just, bringing him back miraculously, which I really liked how they kind of, at least explained it to the audience, because the audience is not going to understand. And I like how they showed how he got to the dam, took control of it, using his awesome military skills, and they kind of delved into his backstory a little bit, but didn't really make it necessarily that obvious. They were like, oh, he was this military guy and this secret-looking thing. I don't know if it's necessarily secret, but you know what I mean. He was like this, definitely like a crazy special ops guy, but they don't really tell you. They just make you kind of know what's going on, but you don't really know. And I think it's interesting. It adds a certain depth of mystery to his character. He's probably one of my favorite characters on the show right now. It was a really good focus episode. It gave us a lot of insight into his character, bridged a gap that definitely needed to be bridged, and generally it was just a good episode. I really liked it. I liked the lightning zombie kill. That was really cool. That's about it for that episode. The Alicia focus episode was a little bit less interesting to me, but it was still a really good episode as far as character goes. So it's basically the whole thing is that Alicia needs to focus up here and lead these people who are probably about to all die, which they do. One thing that bugged me about this episode though was the insane plot armor that just so happened to save Alicia and only Alicia. Really bugged me. Plot armor is just really annoying. Everybody's running out of air, and they all die except for her. Like, that's convenient, ain't it? Like, come on, are you for real right now? That minor complaint aside, it was a really good episode because it showed the emotional side of her character. It's almost like a coming of age kind of thing, where she has to take charge and be the adult in the situation. And it was generally a really good episode. I really liked it. Not my favorite episode, but definitely one of the better episodes of the latter half of the season. Moving on. Nick was probably one of my favorite characters this entire season because of his whole arc kind of thing. It wasn't really necessarily an arc because he was kind of the same throughout for the most part, but he did have a few development moments that I really liked. He started off the season as like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take charge here. I'm gonna do what I gotta do to keep my my friendos safe, and so he did that. And then they got to the ranch. He's kind of taking charge. He's got to take the. Then after Travis's death, he has to take on like the male. He has to become the man of the family because of Travis now being gone. So he has to kind of take up that mantle. He's still recovering from his drug use. you know, he's got a lot on his plate as far as that goes. And then after the mid-season finale where he kills Jeremiah, he has to deal with that now. He has to bear the weight of that on his shoulders. He has to deal with Troy now because Troy kind of wants to be him. Troy kind of sees a lot of himself in Nick, but Nick is like, no, we ain't the same. We ain't having none of this. He had a lot of really decent moments as far as character development goes, and by the end of the season, I really liked how he was like, yeah, I'm gonna sacrifice. I'm gonna take one for the team here, guys. I'm gonna sacrifice myself. So that was really interesting. I really hope he makes it to season 4. Because he's a really good character, and I really don't want to see him. He's probably my favorite character of the entire show, probably next to Daniel and Strand. Really interesting character. Really hope they don't kill him off. The last character I want to talk about is Madison, basically the main character of this show. Her arc was absolutely horrible this season. I'm not gonna lie. She barely changed at all. She started off as like this. I don't know what kind of word to use, but she was kind of like apathetic. She was like, yeah, I don't care, do it, do your thing. She was apathetic in regards of like, yeah, kill people, yeah, do it, whatever. She'll do whatever she has to do to keep her family safe. And then once Travis dies, you'd think it'd be like, oh, maybe she'll become a little bit more compassionate or a little bit more aggressive. And then maybe you could say she did get a little bit more aggressive, but she was kind of like that already, where she was like, I'm gonna take charge here. I'm gonna take on the ranch here. I'm gonna take it out. I'm gonna mold it to my liking. She's kind of like that. I feel like she would have done that regardless of if Travis had died or not. They should have definitely used, like, they didn't. It's kind of going back to earlier in the video, but they didn't use Travis's death to shape anybody really. Like, Madison was like, oh, Travis died, I'm a little bit sad now. I'm gonna not change my character at all. Her character really didn't change. She was kind of the same thing throughout. And that kind of bugged me. Maybe at the end she was kind of like, oh, okay, maybe you could see a little bit of change there. Maybe when she was on the brink of her entire family dying, I guess you could have seen like, okay, maybe she's like a little bit less of I don't know what the word to be. I don't know what word you would use here, but a little bit less of the apathetic person we've seen before. You'd think, you know, maybe she would maybe learn from these experiences, but she really doesn't. She just kind of keeps doing the same thing and expecting different results. I don't know. They can easily change her character up a lot and make her a lot better as a character, but this season they did not really do a great job of that. A lot of people complain about the regular Walking Dead, how that's like, oh, it's so predictable. They just go from location to the next location. They just keep losing locations until they finally don't get a location, which is completely wrong, by the way, up until season 5. Anyways, Fear the Walking Dead had a similar issue this season, where they ended up finding the ranch. They're like, oh, this is a pretty cool place. Let's take complete control of it. In a military dictatorship. Not really, not that extreme. Obviously not that extreme. But, you get the point. They're like, oh, it's a cool place. Let's take a little bit of control here. Let's make our voices heard. You know what I'm saying? Some democracy. They take control of the place, and then after the place falls, after a giant herd of walkers, they're like, oh, well, we gotta find a new place. Oh, let's go to the dam. They go to the dam, and it's like, oh, no, let's play. This place is gone now too. Oh, well, that's great. What now? Now, one thing that definitely made me like this season a lot more than some of the seasons of Walking Dead even is that they were allowed to use F-bombs. They used a couple of F-bombs in this one, and I just love it. It's great. I love that they're allowed to do that, especially because of how AMC is with censorship. If you look at the regular Walking Dead, the comic book, for example, they say the F word. They swear a whole lot in that book. They especially Negan, if you know what I'm saying. But they censor. I don't think I even said one F-bomb on television. At least I know they have in the DVD and the uncut versions of Walking Dead, but they don't do it on TV at all because that has to do with something with how AMC is the only company that really owns the show, as opposed to something like Breaking Bad, where it was jointly owned by AMC and another company. Fear the Walking Dead is I don't know the ownership behind the show. I would assume it's similar to the actual show, so I would assume AMC is the one that owns it. We need a lot less censorship on TV as far as like swearing itself goes. Because think about it, if you censor out like the F word. If I say, if I say it and then they censor it, it's like, okay, it's obvious what he said here. You're just putting that in my mind. So that's, I never understood censorship in that regard. I really think they should definitely keep doing that on the actual show, as opposed to just keeping all the uncut versions on the DVD. So definitely keep it up with the less strict censorship, guys. I'm loving it. Keep that up. The one thing that really bugged me about this season, and I don't necessarily blame them for doing this because it'll get them more ratings for the next season, but the way they ended this season with basically everybody except for Madison and Taka, like basically everybody's death being very ambiguous. They're like, oh, did Nick die? Did Daniel die? Did Alicia and Strand die? Are they all dead? Where were they? Are they alive? They dead? What's happening? Or even like Proctor John, the creepy pedophile guy. Even him, it's like, oh, is he dead? Is he alive? Is he gonna come back in the next season? No, we don't know. It almost reminds me of the end of Arrow season 5, where there were the bombs on the island and everybody's death was like, oh, did they die? Who died on the island? But as we got closer to the next season, we were like, okay, obviously they're all alive. But it was like they did this thing where it's like, oh, we got to keep all these people's deaths ambiguous so people come back for the next season, and I don't blame them for doing that because it'll definitely get them better ratings for season 4. But they need to, like, maybe give us a little bit of a hint, I mean, it really, I don't know. I mean, it was something that they did less for the story and more for profit, because this show is, I don't want to say it's like this show is failing, it's not as good as the regular Walking Dead, so it's failing, but it's definitely, it's probably not as universally loved as The Walking Dead, so they definitely want to get you to keep coming back to it, because if they just ended the season on like a more fulfilling, more satisfying ending, like the whole family is like together or whatever, like, they got everybody, the gang's all here basically, they're like, okay, let's go survive somewhere else. So they could have easily done something like a more satisfying ending, but that probably wouldn't have gotten people to come back for the next season. So I see why they did it. Kind of bugged me why they did it, and it really bugged me that they did it in general, because I really don't like ambiguous endings like that, because it's like, oh great, no, well now I have to wait, and it's gonna leave a void in my soul that isn't my crippling depression. So all in all, Fear the Walking Dead Season 3 was probably the best season of Fear the Walking Dead we have yet, and it's even better than probably some of the weaker seasons of the regular Walking Dead. It's definitely a really good, really good season of the show. I definitely recommend watching it if you like The Walking Dead or Fear the Walking Dead. It's not. Don't get me wrong. It was not a perfect season by any means. There were a lot of glaring problems that I may or may not have talked about in this video. There's a couple things I missed, but there were a lot of problems in this season. Don't get me wrong. It definitely could have used some improvement in the next season, especially considering that now that I believe the showrunners are changing on Fear for the next season. I believe Scott M. Gimple is coming on to do Fear the Walking Dead Season 4, and I think they're getting rid of the Dave Erickson guy, if I'm not mistaken. But, I mean, I feel like a change in writing or showrunners or whatever you want to call them, I feel like a change in that can definitely be an improvement for Fear the Walking Dead. It's definitely not a perfect show in general, but Season 3 was definitely a step in the right direction towards a much better companion show to The Walking Dead. So, if you like The Walking Dead, definitely give Fear the Walking Dead a try if you haven't watched it. If you like Fear the Walking Dead and you haven't seen this season yet, definitely watch this season. It gets a lot better than Season 2. Fear the Walking Dead Season 3 is really good. It's not great, but it's good. It's definitely passable in my eyes. I know a lot of people don't necessarily like it, but it's different strokes for different folks. I personally rather enjoyed it. If I had to rank the 3 seasons of Fear the Walking Dead so far, it'd probably be 3, 1, then 2, because 2 was not that great. 1 was probably good because it was short, to the point, and I'm probably a little bit biased here because I like seeing how apocalypses start. If that makes any sense, But Season 3 was definitely a lot better because they had a lot of interesting ideas, some of which were implemented well, a lot of good character moments, and a story that I generally liked for the most part because it didn't necessarily rely heavily on the zombies themselves. I mean, I know a lot of people don't like that. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with me on that, considering it's a zombie TV show. But Fear the Walking Dead Season 3, definitely check it out. It's definitely a very much an improvement on the previous season. It's really good. Definitely watch it if you haven't already. My name is Matt at Chunky Monkey Games, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.